Everybody, it's Miss Mac, and this is my first video for the 2019-2020 school year. Welcome to my YouTube channel, and we're going to start The Outsiders. So you're going to be reading today. I'm not necessarily going to give you an annotation focus because this is our first time together, but there may be a special guest. Normally when you read with me or when you listen to a YouTube video, I want you to have your book out along with your highlighter and your pen so that you can annotate and follow along and be more than ready when you get to class the next day. So we're going to start chapter 1, The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton. Here we go. When I stepped out into the bright sunlight from the darkness of the movie house, I had only two things on my mind: Paul Newman and a ride home. I was wishing I looked like Paul Newman. He looks tough and I don't. But I guess my own looks aren't so bad. I have light brown, almost red hair and greenish gray eyes. I wish they were more gray because I hate most guys that have green eyes, but I have to be content with what I have. My hair is longer than a lot of boys wear theirs, squared off in the back and long at the front and sides. But I am a greaser, and most of my neighborhood rarely bothers to get a haircut. Besides, I look better with long hair. I had a long walk home and no company. I usually loan it anyway, for no reason except that I like to watch movies undisturbed so I can get into them and live them with the actors. When I see a movie with someone, it's kind of uncomfortable, like having someone read your book over your shoulder. I'm different that way. I mean, my second oldest brother, Soda, who is 16 going on 17, never cracks a book at all. And my oldest brother, Daryl, we call him Derry, works too long and hard to be interested in a story or drawing a picture. So I'm not like them. And nobody in our gang digs movies and books the way I do. For a while there, I thought I was the only person in the world that did. So I loaned it. Soda tries to understand at least, which is more than Derry does. But then Soda is different from anybody. He understands everything almost. Like, he's never hollering at me all the time, the way Derry is, or treating me as if I was 6 instead of 14. I love Soda more than I've loved anyone, even Mom and Dad. He's always happy-go-lucky and grinning, while Derry's hard and firm and rarely grins at all. But then, Derry's gone through a lot in his 20 years, grown up too fast. Soda Pop will never grow up at all. I don't know which way is the best. I'll find out one of these days. Anyway, I went on walking home, thinking about the movie, and then suddenly wishing I had some company. Greasers can't walk alone too much or they'll get jumped, or someone will come by and scream, "Greaser!" at them, which doesn't make you feel too hot, if you know what I mean. We get jumped by the socials. I'm not sure how you spell it, but it's the abbreviation for socials, the jet set, the West Side rich kids. It's like the term greaser, which is used to class all us boys on the East Side. We're poorer than the socials and the middle class. I reckon we're wilder too. Not like the socials who jump greasers and wreck houses and throw beer blasts for kicks and get editorials in the paper for being a public disgrace one day and an asset to society the next. Greasers are almost like hoods. We steal things and drive old souped-up cars and hold up gas stations and have gang fights once in a while. I don't mean I do those things like that. Derry would kill me if I got into trouble with the police. Since Mom and Dad were killed in an auto wreck, the three of us get to stay together as long as we behave. So Soda and I stay out of trouble as much as we can. We're careful not to get caught when we can't. I only mean that most creatures do things like that. Just like we wear our hair long and dress in blue jeans and t-shirts, or leave our shirt tails out, or wear leather jackets and tennis shoes and boots. I'm not saying that either socials or greasers are better. That's just the way things are. I could have waited to go to the movies until Derry or Soda Pop got off work. They would have gone with me, or driven me there, or walked along. Although Soda just can't sit still long enough to enjoy a movie, and they bore Derry to death. Derry thinks his life is enough without inspecting other people's. Or I could have gotten one of the gang to come along, one of the 4 boys Derry, and Soda and I have grown up with and consider family. We're almost as close as brothers. When you grow up in a tight-knit neighborhood like ours, you get to know each other real well. If I had thought about it, I could have called Derry and he would have come by on his way home and picked me up. Or Two-Bit Matthews, one of our gang, would have come to get me in his car if I had asked him. But sometimes I just don't use my head. It drives my brother Derry nuts when I do stuff like that, because I'm supposed to be smart. I make good grades and I have a high IQ and everything, but I don't use my head. Besides, I like walking. I about decided I didn't like it much, though when I spotted that red Corvair trailing me, I was almost 2 blocks from home then. So I started walking a little faster. I had never been jumped, but I had seen Johnny after 4 socials got hold of him, and it was pretty bad. Johnny was scared of his own shadow after that. Johnny was 16 then. I knew it wasn't any use though, the fast walking. I mean, even before the Corvair pulled up beside me and 5 socials got out, I got pretty scared. I'm kind of small for 14, even though I have a good build, and those guys were bigger than me. I automatically hitched my thumbs in my jeans and slouched, wondering if I could get away with it or make a break for it. I remember Johnny, his face all cut up and bruised, and I remember how he cried when we found him, half conscious in the corner lot. Johnny had it awful rough at home. It took a lot to make him cry. I was sweating something fierce. Although I was cold, I could feel my palms getting clammy and the perspiration running down my back. I get like that when I'm real scared. I glanced around for a pop bottle or a stick or something. Steve Randall, Soda's best buddy, had once held off 4 guys with a busted pipe bottle. But there was nothing, so I stood there like a bump on a log while they surrounded me. I didn't use my head. They walked around, slowly, silently smiling. "Hey, Grease," one of them said in an over-friendly voice. "We're gonna do you a favor, Greaser. We're gonna cut all that long, greasy hair off." He had a Madras shirt. I can still see it. Blue Madras. One of them laughed, then cussed me out in a low voice. I couldn't think of anything to say. There just ain't a whole lot to say while you're getting mugged, so I kept my mouth shut. "Need a haircut, Greaser?" The medium-sized blonde pulled a knife out of his back pocket and flipped the blade open. "Need a haircut, Greaser?" I finally thought of something to say. No. I was backing up away from the knife. Of course, I backed right into one of them. They had me down in a second. They had my arms and legs pinned down, and one of them was sitting on my chest with his knees on my elbows. And if you don't think that hurts, you're crazy. I could smell English leather, shaving lotion, and stale tobacco, and I wondered foolishly if I would suffocate before they did anything. I was so scared, so bad I was wishing I would. I fought to get loose and almost did for a second. Then they tightened up on me, and the one on my chest slugged me a couple of times. So I lay still, swearing at them between gasps. A blade was held against my throat. "How'd you like that haircut to begin just below the chin?" It occurred to me that they could kill me. I went wild. I started screaming for Soda, Derry, anyone. Someone put his hand over my mouth, and I bit it as hard as I could, tasting the blood running through my teeth. I heard a muttered curse and got slugged again. And they were stuffing a handkerchief in my mouth. One of them kept saying, "Shut up, for Pete's sake, shut him up." Then there were shouts and pounding of feet, and the socialists jumped up and left me lying there gasping. I lay there and wondered what in the world was happening. People were jumping over me and running by me, and I was too dazed to figure it out. Then someone had me under his armpits and was hauling me to my feet. It was Derry. Okay, I'm going to stop right there because I want to talk a little bit about story elements or narrative elements. There are 6: setting, character, conflict, theme, point of view, and plot. But for your first day of class and our first unit, we're going to focus mainly on plot. And plot has its own set of elements. The one we're focused on today is exposition. Exposition is basically how the story begins. Everything you learn about the character in those first few pages is called the exposition. Now, the exposition has 4 elements. They are character, setting, conflict, and background information. And I have 2 special guests that are going to join me and talk to us about the exposition of the outsiders. Ladies? So we have Kayleen and we have Haley. So Kayleen and Haley, and I'm going to move a little bit off camera so that you can see them. Can you just tell me, what is exposition?
Exposition is the beginning of the story.
Okay. And Haley, can you tell me the elements of exposition? What do we learn in the exposition of a story?
Character, setting, conflict, and background information.
Yeah. So maybe you guys can give me some information about the exposition or the beginning of the story of the outsiders. Let's talk a little bit about that. So one of the first elements of exposition is character. Can you tell us about the characters that we meet at the beginning of the story or during the exposition?
So one of the characters is Pony Boy,
Mm-hmm.
and his 2 older brothers, Soda and Dairy.
Okay. And what about setting? Haley, where is the story taking place? Or at least what is the information we learn about the setting in the first couple of pages of the book?
So Ponyboy is leaving the movies.
Right? And can you tell me a little bit more about that? Is he with a bunch of people? Is he by himself? Because all of that makes up setting. Tell me a little bit more.
So Ponyboy left the movies all by himself.
Okay, great. So far we did setting and character. What are the other 2 elements of exposition that we learn at the beginning of a story?
Conflict and background.
Okay, so background information. Did we learn any background information about Ponyboy and his family?
Yes.
Okay, ladies, share.
We learned that he doesn't have his parents because they were killed. They were killed in an auto wreck.
Yeah, so they were killed in an automobile accident. And a lot of times what authors do, ladies, is they give you a little bit of information or background information to sort of set the context of the story. We're not going to really learn much about his parents in the story, but it's interesting to learn that they were killed in a car accident because that tells us why Ponyboy is living with his 2 brothers. And then finally, the exposition tells us emerging conflict. So we get a little bit of a hint as to what the main character is struggling with. And in this case, what is the conflict? Haley?
The conflict is there are 2 games.
Mm-hmm.
One is the socials, and one of them are the greasers. And Ponyboy is in the greaser, and he's very poor.
Mm-hmm.
And the socials are very rich.
Okay.
So the conflict is how when Ponyboy was walking to his house, leaving the movies,
Mm-hmm.
the socials went up to him and started beating him up.
Right. So we see this conflict emerge between the socials, and those are the kids that live on the west side of town and whose parents are wealthy, and the greasers who live on the east side of town and are for the most part poor. And so as the story develops and as the story unfolds, we're going to learn more about that conflict. Guys, that's all for today. First video. I didn't read the whole chapter because I really wanted to focus on the very beginning of the story and get you to understand that exposition is the beginning of the story. And in the exposition, we learn who the main character is, we get information about the setting, we get background information, and we also see hints of an emerging conflict. That's all for today. See you in chapter 2. Bye.